Living in Reseda, there's a freeway.
Tom Petty was the most critical music reviewer. He was a strict purist who was really into music, convictions about what guitar playing should be, and a legendary intolerance for what he considered empty virtuosity. I like it more when the groups actually play something you know. It's not as entertaining seeing 5 singers in sweaters as it is, you know. Tom didn't just dislike certain guitarists. He took their playing as a personal affront to rock and roll. Heartbreakers guitarist Mike Campbell reportedly confided in 2018, while most musicians were diplomatic about their contemporaries, Tom would analyze exactly how they'd betrayed the instrument, then dismiss them entirely. Today we're counting down the 6 guitarists that allegedly drove the passionate rocker to his breaking point, the players that made the usually laid-back Petty abandon his Californian cool and launch into legendary tirades that industry insiders still reference years after his passing. Prepare for the definitive ranking of the guitarists that pushed the American icon to his limit, the ones he criticized, mocked, and above all reportedly viewed as betraying the sacred covenant between guitarist and audience. Number 6, Eddie Van Halen. When Eddie Van Halen changed the way people played guitar in the late 1970s, Petty is said to have seen him as the sign of everything that was wrong with rock guitar: flash over feeling, skill over truth, and virtuosity for its own sake. Eddie can play a lot of notes very quickly. But can he play one that anyone will notice? Tom is said to have said during a Heartbreakers practice in 1978, after hearing Van Halen's first record, "It's like being impressed by someone who talks really fast without saying anything worth hearing." Roys, who worked on both shows, say that Petty's dislike went beyond just not liking the way something looked. It is said that Tom would turn down the monitor speakers in the backstage area if Van Halen was playing nearby. He was heard saying, "All that technique and not a single song about anything real? What's the point?" Witnesses say the tension rose after both bands played at festivals together in the early 1980s. Petty apparently watched part of Van Halen's set with a hurt look on his face and then told drummer Stan Lynch, "That's not rock and roll, that's a circus act with amplifiers. The guitars become the main attraction instead of the song." Eddie, who is usually friendly, is said to have tried to start a conversation with Petty backstage at a radio station event but got what one witness called the cold shoulder heard round the music world. Eddie asked Tom some technical questions, and Tom is said to have said, "I'd rather write songs that people remember than solos that impress other guitarists." According to Heartbreakers keyboardist Benmont Tench, Petty would sometimes talk about Van Halen as the standard during recording sessions to avoid saying, "If you're thinking about how hard something is to play instead of how it makes people feel, you've already lost the plot." Fifth, it's Yngwie Malmsteen. It is said that Swedish neoclassical shredder guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen embodied everything Petty disliked about the direction of guitar playing in the 1980s, technique taken too far to the point of self-parody with little emotional link to the listener. Tom thought that Malmsteen was the last straw for rock guitar. Heartbreakers bassist Ron Blair is said to have said, "Plays the guitar like it's a competitive sport. Music isn't a competition, it's communication." Music historians don't talk much about the alleged encounter that happened behind the scenes at a music event in 1986, according to witnesses. Malmsteen was warming up with his signature arpeggios near the Heartbreakers dressing room, which is said to have made Petty ask, "Does that sound like someone strangling a cat that swallowed a calculator? Is that supposed to move people?" Reports say that things got worse when Guitar magazine started putting Malmsteen's technical style on their covers after an incredibly honest radio talk in 1987. People say that Petty replied to the comparison by saying, "I play guitar to serve songs, he plays songs barely to serve his guitar playing. We're not even in the same profession." It is said that Petty had harsh opinions about the new classical movement in private talks with producer Jeff Lynne. Malmsteen led the charge that turned the most emotionally direct instrument into the most emotionally distant one. Tom supposedly said that Bach had something to say, but these guys just have something to prove. Guns N' Roses may have been the most surprising band on Petty's list of guitar enemies. Axeman. It is said that Tom was particularly interested in a blues musician whose musical tastes might seem to match Tom's own. Tom thought Slash was more about style than substance. According to drummer Stan Lynch, he would say, "The hat, the cigarette, and the Les Paul, it's all carefully put together to sell the idea of authenticity without the real lived experience behind it." According to executives at Geffen Records, the rivalry got worse in the late 1980s, when both bands were having huge financial success. People close to Petty say that he got angry when people compared his straightforward style to Slash's more flashy one. He is said to have said, "The difference is I'm selling songs, he's selling a Guitar Hero fantasy." What reportedly annoyed Petty the most was what he saw as Slash's calculated image. Tom thought it was manufactured rebellion. Photographer Mark Seliger supposedly recalled from a photo session, he'd say, "We actually lived through the 60s and 70s. These guys are wearing the uniform without serving in the trenches." They ran into each other at a number of business events, which led to what one backstage crew member called mutual assessment when Guns N' Roses opened for the Rolling Stones. Petty is said to have told his band, "They're playing dress up as rock stars, we're still trying to be musicians." Third, Kirk Hammett. Not many Petty fans know that beneath his calm exterior lay a deep dislike for the way Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett played. This difference in style apparently turned into a personal crusade against what he saw as technique hiding emotion. Tom thought that guitar parts should tell stories. Breaking Hearts guitarist Mike Campbell is said to have said, "Kirk plays like he's being paid by the note. More notes don't always mean more feeling, in fact, it's usually the opposite." Petty was said to dislike not only Hammett's technique but also the whole metal genre he represented, according to people who toured with him in the early 1990s. Tom thought Metallica's style was more about intensity than intimacy. He is said to have told his band, "They're not trying to connect with you, they're trying to overwhelm you. That's not conversation, that's assault." It is said that things got worse when both bands were on the same festival bill in 1992. Tom is said to have watched parts of Metallica's set afterward and told drummer Stan Lynch about it. "It's impressive in the same way a jackhammer is impressive, effective at what it does, but would you want to listen to one for pleasure?" Petty was especially bothered by Hammett's dependence on effects. He didn't understand why Hammett needed them so much. According to biographers, Hammett's tour manager Richard Fernandez told them, Tom would say, "When you're saying something meaningful you don't need to run it through a filter. The va-voix is just there to make empty playing sound interesting." As an interesting aside, Petty is said to have reviewed Metallica's self-titled Black Album at the request of the producers, who said, "It's like they've discovered how effective simplicity can be, but they're still hid behind the speed and distortion. They're halfway to actually communicating." If you're enjoying this deep dive into If you want to know Tom Petty's secret thoughts on guitar, now is the best time to subscribe. We reveal the shocking feuds and stories that mainstream documentaries won't tell you about the music industry. Subscribe now to make sure you don't miss our weekly exposes on the feuds, fights, and hidden grudges that shape the music you love, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. The background of music they don't want you to know goes on right after this. Number 2. It is well known that Joe Satriani didn't like solo guitar virtuoso Joe Satriani's ideas about guitar as the lead instrument reportedly offended Tom's core beliefs about the purpose of rock and roll. Tom believed that Satriani represented everything that was wrong with where guitar was going. In 2016, producer Rick Rubin reportedly said, he'd say, "Guitar without vocals is like a conversation where one person does all the talking. Eventually you tune them out." Witnesses say the tension started after Satriani's album Surfing with the Alien became a surprise hit in 1987. Petty was apparently horrified by what he saw as the emotional emptiness of the album and told guitarist Mike Campbell this. "Without lyrics, what is he actually trying to say? That he can play fast? That's not communication, that's just showing off." Fans don't know that Petty allegedly turned down multiple invitations from Satriani's management team in the 1990s to attend guitar-themed events where Satriani was performing. Tom said, "Those aren't concerts, they're trade shows, they're selling the idea that technique matters more than songwriting." It is said that Petty listened to Satriani's "Flying in a Blue Dream" at the insistence of a friend, observing silently for several tracks before allegedly saying, "It's the musical equivalent of someone who talks impressively but says nothing, all vocabulary and no actual content." When asked about songwriters in an interview in 1992, Satriani is said to have praised several of Petty's peers while notably leaving out Tom Petty, which is said to have made Petty complain to his band. "He probably doesn't consider what I do impressive enough. Good, I'd rather be understandable than impressive." Number 1. YouTube's original guitarist The Edge was said to be at the top of Petty's list of guitar annoyances. He was said to dislike him so much that it became a running joke throughout the Heartbreakers' career, according to people who knew him well. Tom thought that The Edge's use of a lot of effects showed that technology was better than skill. Tom thought that a guitarist should sound like themselves when they're not playing. In a rare 2015 interview, drummer Stan Lynch is said to have said, "The Edge wouldn't even be recognizable without his pedal board. That's not playing guitar, that's programming a computer with 6 strings." Most fans don't know this, but Petty is said to have become angry after hearing YouTube's breakthrough album The Joshua Tree in 1987. He is said to have listened in stunned silence before allegedly saying, "This isn't guitar playing, it's sound design." He's found a way to make limited ability sound innovative through technology. The EDG was criticized for everything he did during guitar overdubs. Petty was said to have used him as an example of how not to do things by telling Mike Campbell, "Remember that effects should enhance what you're playing, not replace what you're not playing. Don't hide behind them like our friend from Dublin." They met at a number of industry events in the 1980s and 1990s, creating what one attendee called polite musical tension when The Edge tried to talk guitar tones with Campbell while Tom was there. Petty is said to have asked, "Mike gets his sound from his fingers. Where do you get yours from again, Radio Shack?" Witnesses at a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame event say that Petty's response to YouTube's huge popularity and critical acclaim was the most telling. When someone praised The Edge's innovative approach, Tom is said to have said, "Innovation used to mean playing something no one had played before, not buying something no one had bought before. That's all there is to it, Tom." Which of Petty's 6 most hated guitarists, ranging from technical shredders to effects wizards, were able to break through the Heartbreakers' laid-back persona and show the rock and roll purist inside? Which of Petty's guitar feud surprised you the most? Leave a comment below with your ideas. If you want to see more untold stories from the golden age of rock and roll, click the subscribe button and hit the like button. Until next time.